Welcome to the future. Welcome to Bitcoin, Bit2Meros. Good afternoon on this, the 8th of July, 2025. Another month has passed now in the middle of summer. We're delighted to be with you again. We can see you live there. We really appreciate it. Of course, Elvis, Javier, Jordi, Raquel, everyone who's here with us. Well, it's a real pleasure to be with you again this afternoon to go over, as you know, Bit2Me news, all the latest updates we have from the platform and also from the ecosystem. And as always, as it couldn't be any other way, we have Giovanni here with us. How are you, Giovanni? Good afternoon.
Good day, Javi. Good day, Bit2Me. Honestly, it's amazing, as always, to have you all here with us. Even now, as summer is starting, I really didn't expect people to be paying so much attention. Some have even been waiting since before. It's also amazing when we get the chance to connect with part of the community at in-person events like the one we had at Wire in the Telefonica building, which we'll talk about later. And well, thank you so much to everyone who's here. And Javi, as always, tell us a bit about how the whole Bitcoin market is doing and how we can in some way apply those strategies and tools that for what you're going to tell us.
Well, before we get started, I think, Giovanni, and it's kind of what we were talking about behind the scenes, right? What we were saying with Jose, with you, hey, what's your feeling about the market, right? Do you think people seem kind of switched off, but they're really eager for a bull market? Are we feeling negative, positive? Where are we at right now? That's why I think it's a good opportunity to share that survey, Giovanni, so people can start responding before we go over a bit of the content we have with the question of where you expect or where you think or maybe where you want the market to go. Surely some will answer based on their hopes for the market to grow by the end of this year in December or in 2025. Where do you think the level will be? Where do you think the price of Bitcoin will be? So we're going to leave the survey for you to answer live, and then we'll also discuss it, Giovanni. Well, I'd like to start a bit with what's happening in the world, right? The truth is that 2025 is turning out to be a year of major changes. As we know, structural paradigm shifts. There's a lot of geopolitical and geoeconomic movement. I'm not sure if we talked about this last month, but as you know, a law has just been approved by the Senate now. It still needs to pass in Congress, but it has been approved by both Democrats and Republicans. It's a law that allows the US dollar in tokens, in stable coins, to be issued by private entities, financial institutions, or even companies. The Genius Act, maybe that sounds familiar? Well, what this law would allow is the use of dollars as stable coins through different networks that would reach other countries. They would reach into the territories of other jurisdictions, and that would allow users to access this type of token. And why is that important? Because it has a very deep geoeconomic and geopolitical component, which is that people can exchange their local currency like the euro here in Europe, or if you're in Argentina, the peso, in Bolivia, the Boliviano, or any other currency from anywhere in the world for a currency or a token backed by the US dollar. And that currency issued by these companies or banks is also invested in an important asset, which is the US Treasury bond. Recently, I listened to a very interesting podcast about the strength and trajectory of the dollar. And there are some economists and analysts who say that the expansion we have experienced since World War II, both in the number of users and in borrowing capacity, not only within the United States, but also through the euro-dollar system, which is not a system of exchanging euros for dollars, but rather refers to banks outside the control of the Federal Reserve has tried to extend and prolong the use of the dollar. And they are saying that right now, the world's reserves are around 55 or 56% of all dollars in existence, and that it will be very difficult to gain market share. We also see this with the BRICS. What does this mean? It means that there are those who believe that the ceiling for the dollar's expansion is coming to an end. And the Genius Act, which I mentioned, this expansion through the tokenization of the dollar to reach citizens in any country in the world, is an attempt to extend the dollar's hegemony. But of course, this might work or it might not. And why do I say this? Well, because as you know, in the United States, a law has also been passed called the Big Beautiful Bill, which is a law that includes a series of tax modifications, changes to the structure of the US government, and most importantly, remove the debt ceiling. And Donald Trump has said that in the coming years, they're going to take on 5 trillion more in debt, 5 trillion, surpassing the 40 trillion mark. Why is this important? Because what we have been seeing in the United States in the beginning of this year, in the first 6 months of 2025, is the biggest drop the dollar has experienced against a basket of global currencies since 1973. And it has fallen by 11%. This is outrageous. I mean, this is a huge amount. Americans, if any of you are watching us from the United States, you know this. Right now, if you go to the supermarket, to Walmart or Costco or any American supermarket, a bag of potato chips costs you $5, $6, or even $7. There is an enormous inflation and a massive increase in prices, isn't there? With so many products in the country, in this whole context, of course, I'm telling you all this so I can later connect it obviously to Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. As you know, Bitcoin is also gaining traction from a regulatory standpoint. We're seeing how more and more companies and corporations are adopting it, integrating it as part of their reserves. In 2020, it was only Strategy and a few other companies. And now we already have more than 150 companies. Why? Because aside from the so-called magnificent 7, Amazon, Google, Tesla, Nvidia, all these companies, Meta, which are, well, huge corporations, the rest face a lot of challenges. If they offer financial products to finance you, rather, if the market is to provide returns above the interest paid, for example, by government debt, it's very difficult for them. US government bonds, which right now are close to 5%. So what precisely happens? We have an environment of numerous zombie companies that demonstrably can grow or offer financial returns higher than the prevailing inflation rate or US government debt, which is widely considered to be the safest fixed income product in the entire world. Consequently, people are actively looking for viable alternatives. Why is Bitcoin stagnant? So someone might say, come on, Javier, you're saying there's a very complicated geopolitical and geoeconomic context that the dollar is falling, that companies are unprofitable even if the stock market goes up. Because it's true that the stock market does give you exposure to a basket of stocks or publicly traded companies, and that can lead to better returns. But Bitcoin seems to be stuck, right? It's been in that sideways range we've been seeing since November, since we hit 109,000, then dropped to 74,000. With that, that Freedom Day on the 2nd of April, I think it was when Donald Trump talked about tariffs. Now he's saying he's going to postpone some of them until the 1st of August. That creates volatility. But what we're seeing, and it's super important to be clear about this, is that there's a change of hands happening. There's a transfer of Bitcoin from those who have been holding it for years, since 2011, 2012, 2013. In fact, I don't know if you saw recently that a wallet with 80,000 Bitcoins woke up. It seems that for now, they're not liquidating them. They're not selling them. There are speculations about why they've done it and who that person or entity is. Some say it's Roger Ver, who was one of the early adopters of Bitcoin back in 2011, 2012. And that wallet with 80,000 Bitcoins was using a public address that could now, don't worry, this is still being debated and needs to be looked into, could have some vulnerability from the perspective of quantum computing. And what this holder is doing is getting ahead of things and updating the addresses, right? From the model that we have now, what that does is move the price. To give you an idea, we've been in a sideways range, more or less from 90,000, 95,000 to 108,000, which I think is where it is now, for about 60 days, 61 days. The previous cycle, let's say the previous consolidation that happened since Trump won the elections in November lasted 101 days. So we would still need about a month to repeat that previous behavior. But what we've seen is that both Strategy and BlackRock, which are the two largest holders in the world, now own more than 6% of all Bitcoin. And every morning, Giovanni, the first things I do when I wake up, besides washing my face, is check how many Bitcoins BlackRock has bought. And every day, an average of between 1,000 and 2,000 Bitcoins are being bought. Some days they don't buy anything, but there aren't any outflows either, aside from Fidelity and others. And Strategy is also buying, but what we really need to pay attention to is the number of corporations that are realizing how important Bitcoin is. And why are we telling you this? Because, Giovanni, what I'm also seeing is a lot of users.
In fact, Javi, if you actually, Strategy said they were aiming to reach 3%. So, in fact, actually, it's also quite interesting that many people say, of course, the big companies, the major players are starting to accumulate and they're holding on to them. But instead of that line of thinking, it's actually quite interesting because many people say, well, if they're accumulating, why? That's the question. Why are they doing it? What value are they seeing in Bitcoin that some users who are just starting out aren't seeing? They still have some doubts. And on the other hand, there are people who are gradually starting to take advantage of that using simple strategies like the ones we've often talked about, recurring purchases. In fact, along those same lines, we always take the opportunity to show them that we have tools at hand that they can use, like the recurring purchase I was just mentioning. Along those lines, Javi, what do you think about the fact that these big companies, as you were saying, are accumulating Bitcoin? Even governments, with the reserves of Bitcoin that they're updating and bringing up to date.
Of course, what I think we're seeing, Giovanni, is a transition, a period of, that some of us may like more or less from a philosophical point of view, because we've spent many years. For example, I've been linking or trying to connect the idea of Bitcoin with the philosophical mass movement, trying to, to mobilize people to reach their hearts a bit so they understand that Bitcoin goes far beyond just the investment aspect. But I understand that we are at a moment where the trade fi sector, and we've had guests here who know the world of ETFs and stock exchanges very well. For example, Javier Tordable, who was here when the ETFs were approved on the 10th of January of last year. Why do I say this? Because what we are profoundly seeing is that those individuals who possess access to significant capital and those who also have access to comprehensive traditional financial knowledge are actively integrating and truly valuing the inherent properties that Bitcoin inherently possesses, and perhaps other prominent cryptocurrencies as well in this evolving financial landscape. I'm not saying they're not, because here there's someone who writes about the ISO 22002 topic, which basically, for those who don't know, is very popular, very well known, especially among XRP investors. That XRP, basically for me personally, right, Giovanni, I'm not completely convinced by it, but maybe I'm not right about everything, not by a long shot. At Bit2Me, we have more than 300 cryptocurrencies with different projects, with different ideas. And I always talk about Bitcoin because I see its value proposition very clearly. But there are people who like XRP who say, well, so what we're getting at.
So much so that people like it and have been asking us for it, that at one point they requested through Bit2Me feedback, the tool we have for people to give us ideas and suggestions, that we add XRP to the Bit2Me loan service, the lending service, and now we have it. So honestly, I'm also not really in line with XRP because of what it represents for the industry.
No, but anyway, that doesn't mean, what I want to say, Giovanni, is that because of our background or exposure, often give the opinion that we feel is the most well-founded, right? But I do see that there are people who are as convinced about XRP as I am about Bitcoin. What is the proposal? Because we've already talked about Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a real asset, not dependent on third parties, with a deterministic issuance that was not pre-mined. For those who don't know what pre-mine means, it means that if a network like Bitcoin is going to have 21 million tokens, there will be an issuance schedule starting from zero. There isn't going to be a creator, a company like Ripple, for example, that before launching the network, before deploying those tokens, has unilaterally created a certain amount of tokens and kept a portion of them, right? That would be a pre-mine. Okay, so that doesn't happen with Bitcoin, but it does with XRP. But there are those who say that XRP is going to serve as, let's say, a layer or a new communication system similar to what the Swift messaging system is now, which has been operating since the 70s to facilitate communication between banks when making transfers. Basically, what they claim is that it will provide the possibility of automation, global interoperability, efficiency in settlements, efficiency in cross-border payments, and that sort of thing. Do we have XRP at Bit2Me? Yes. Are there users who have XRP at Bit2Me? Of course. So, as you rightly said, Giovanni, if someone has XRP and says, hey, why is it that only those who have Ethereum or those who have Bitcoin can use Bit2Me loan? I don't think that's fair. Well, since XRP is a token with significant liquidity, with a project or a roadmap that could have some development, I'm not getting into that part, okay? So the products we need to have on Bit2Me, including XRP, can make it easier for someone who holds these tokens, not just taking them, but also on Bit2Me to use them with Bit2Me loan, right?
As collateral. Along those same lines, Javi, in fact, we also have, it's no less important, Bit2Me news. For example, I just shared the link to see all the news related to XRP, so you can have more information, and based on that, create your own personal strategies if you decide to support that project in one way or another. This helps avoid it simply being the usual speculation about the price going up or down, or people getting into a project without even knowing why the price is rising. In this way, we always provide support from both academy and news, in this case, so that you can understand a bit more beyond what you're telling us. In fact, you've given a very interesting and very direct summary. So along those lines, if you want, you can access more information.
Of course, well, that's basically what it's about, right? What I wanted to mention right from the start is that in the United States, there are some very significant regulatory moves happening regarding the dollar, okay? On one hand, there's the Genius Act, and on the other, the Big Beautiful Bill, which isn't a law directly related to the world of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. But something else that's happening is that Donald Trump, through his foundation and various companies linked to him or his family, is trying to create an ETF, right? Of course, an ETF isn't a guarantee of success, but if you have an asset with a very specific value proposition, which is what's happening with Bitcoin, then both the people at BlackRock and Fidelity, and all these others are, the importance or the potential lies in offering their investors, their clients, the ability to have an asset, to have exposure within their portfolio alongside other investments, to also have Bitcoin, and that is legitimized by the regulator. That's something that hasn't happened in the last 15 or 16 years. Therefore, 2024 market turning point. I think that even though we're standing here in a sideways market or in a somewhat calmer environment, I do believe, though, I don't know what people have answered, right? With the survey we've done, let's see.
It's quite interesting. That said, Javi, remember that all the questions people are asking us live are being saved, so we can answer them later, some of them on the spot, like right now. Alex Haya tells us, hi, I've taken out a loan using XRP as collateral, but what would happen if XRP drops and the app isn't working at that moment, so I can't access it to pay part of the loan and reduce the risk? Along those lines, how does Bit2Me loan work? Basically, to put it simply, there's a risk meter, and we'll notify you once it reaches 65% through all communication channels, both in the app and elsewhere. Along those lines, then at 75% and 82 and 85%. If at 85% you do absolutely nothing, at that point the decision is made to auto liquidate. But what happens if the app isn't working at that moment? You have the option. First, we'll notify you several times at 65%, 75%, and even at 85%. If the app isn't working, you always have the option to do it through the web version. Anyway, super important, I want to take this moment to remind you to always keep the app updated, because updates include bug fixes, performance improvements, and security enhancements. It also gives you the chance to access new features and new tools. Again, Emilio has asked us several questions and so on, and has even repeated some of them. Please be patient. We'll be answering as we go along or at the end. And if at any point, as I've said before, your question doesn't get answered, don't leave your comment here, leave it afterwards in the comment section of the video, not directly here in the live chat, okay? That way we can answer it in the next session we do, okay? Because in actual fact, today I was thoroughly checking with Javi to see if we had any remaining questions left over from the previous month, and we genuinely didn't find any at all, because they were indeed left right here in the live chat, okay?
Sure, I mean, Bit2Me feedback is always there, ready for you to, you're going to give your assessment or your ideas and so on, right? Hey, comment, Giovanni. Yeah, comment on the survey, how it's going. What price do you think Bitcoin will have by December 2025? Well, 106 votes. We have 180,000 euros or, well, dollars, right? We are talking about dollars. $180,000 or more, 11%. Between 140 and 180, 25%. 100 to 140, 49%. Less than 100, 14%. What do you think, Giovanni? Where do you think, take a stand, where do you think it will be?
I would be between 140 and 180. I think precisely because of what I was saying about the ETFs, the big companies that are getting involved, and people are starting to see it not just as a trend. So I like that it could be an interesting price.
All right. Look, it's interesting because I'm reading the chat as you all comment live. Pepe Rubianes says RLUSD is the stablecoin of XRP, as we all know. All right. As I mentioned before, a law has been passed called the Genius Act. What the Genius Act will allow is for private companies, including banks like JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, and even tech companies, to be issuers of tokens pegged to the dollar through different networks. All right? So one of those networks could be Ripple or XRP. It could be Ethereum. It could be Bitcoin with a second layer like Liquid. It could be In fact, Tether's USDT announced that USDT transfers will be possible on second layers like the Lightning Network. So where are we headed? Because that's what's important. I believe we are moving toward a standardization of fiat currencies, especially the dollar, because here in Europe, as you know, they're steering us more toward the CBDC model. The central bank digital currencies, where those tokens will also be connected to traditional financial systems that allow us to invest in traditional assets like stocks and bonds using those native tokens. So from a regulatory standpoint, from the perspective of the supervisor, the European Commission, and all of this, it's an enormous, gigantic challenge.
Javi, no less important, I know that many people here already have an idea of the difference between one and the other, but in a few words, could you repeat for us once more what the difference is between central bank digital currencies and stable coins? Because sometimes I've come across people who think they're really the same thing, but they're not at all.
No, they're completely different things. Let's see. CBDCs or central bank digital currencies are digital currencies issued by central banks. What does that mean? Right now, all of us have an account open at BBVA, Santander, or Caixa where we keep our euros. But those euros belong to the bank, okay? From a private bank, from an intermediary, a central bank digital currency would be a direct relationship between the citizen and the central bank, bypassing all commercial banks, all right? Now, what I'm talking about that is the CBDC, which also, as you know, Giovanni, has the potential to be programmable. It has the potential for them to tell you how and where you can use your digital euros connected to the central bank. In other words, it would have a backdoor that allows the politician, bureaucrat, or current regulator to decide how you can spend your money. To me, that seems absolutely crazy. Obviously, with Bitcoin, that's not possible. And on the other hand, you have stable. The United States is taking a perspective or is following a completely different path from the European Union. The Union and China focus on central bank digital currency. However, what the United States is saying is, I want private participants, both banks and companies, to be able to issue dollars as long as they are backed by investments in US, government debt, in other words, as a very liquid asset that allows them to compete or enter jurisdictions outside of the United States, but it doesn't have, Giovanni, the ability to be programmed, the ability to be tracked or, let's say, frozen like a CBDC or the digital euro could be. Therefore, we are dealing with two models that we as Europeans need to understand. Here, they're trying to build us a prison, a cagia cage, locked with the digital euro. Meanwhile, what the United States is doing is trying to expand the use of the dollar through the issuance of dollars by private companies, which will also help their country's treasury and the American public cost.
So we have two tools. One of them is Bitcoin and the other is stable coins. Along those same lines, just today we've announced that you now have the option to use your funds that are staked in air to place, buy and sell orders with stable coins. So it's a way that, once again, with simple strategies, you can use these tools in response to what you're talking about, Javi, regarding central bank digital currencies. So that's also an announcement that I wanted to take the opportunity to share, because we now have this feature, which is something that, once again, was requested through B2M Feed, the tool we have for submitting ideas and proposals. This is one of the proposals that has already been implemented thanks to the community, and we're really grateful that you all make the most of that tool. Later at the end, we'll also talk a bit about this tool and some others that are either already implemented or still pending. So Javi, honestly, that part about stablecoins and distinguishing between them is super interesting as well. And the tools we have now, tools we didn't have until recently.
Of course. Just to remind you, Giovanni, within B2M, we have stablecoins pegged both to the euro and the dollar to avoid that volatility, because right now within B2M, you can have a token called EURC, which can generate up to 4, 5, 6, or even 7% in B2M. And you can also link it to your MasterCard, whether it's virtual or physical, as you know, and get automatic cashback in B2M, the B2M token, which you can keep stake for 3, 6, or 12 months, or exchange directly at the current price for euros, Bitcoin, or whatever you want. Therefore, you also have a very winning combination by using stablecoins, because there are people, Giovanni, who have their euros in the bank, earning 1% or less, and they're not doing anything. So, of course, that's why I think there's also an opportunity there, right?
You know, lately, Curio, interestingly, people are also entering the the cryptocurrency ecosystem through stablecoins because they don't want to be initially exposed to the volatility that Bitcoin has, even though now the volatility is much lower. It's also true, as you were saying, that they have the possibility of earning rewards of up to 8% in stablecoins, linking them directly to the card. And not only that, the cashback you are referring to, which is received in B2M, is bought at market price. What does that mean? It means that this benefits the B2M ecosystem because all those purchases, again, both the cashback and the air staking service, as well as referrals, even with referrals, we have the possibility that you can send your referral link to your friend, whether they have a business or not. And what can they do? With that link, they can say, I'll create a business account or a personal account. That single link, that same link is valid for anyone to use to create either a business or a personal account and start little by little. Some are starting with a small percentage in stablecoin and another percentage in Bitcoin. Either one is valid. That's one of the advantages we have, among other things, at B2M, you can choose one option, the other, or both.
Sure, exactly. Look, Giovanni, people are commenting live, and hey, let's also comment on the comments as we go, right? Charrete says, who do you think is going to achieve that, right? Talking about the topic of stablecoins, well, I don't know. Charrete, I think what's important is to understand the stablecoin, what it offers you, and I really can't tell you who might win because this isn't going to depend. This is going to depend on many factors, right? On regulatory issues, on reaching a consensus between countries, and so on. Regarding the fees, Charrete, I'll tell you that you said you charge a lot of fees. We have several services, and one of them is Bit2Me Pro or Bit2Me Trading, okay? For those of you who don't know it, basically what it allows you to do is if you have euros and deposit them in Bit2Me, instead of exchanging them directly in the wallet, you can do it in Bit2Me Pro. If you exchange them in Bit2Me Pro, the fee, the commission is much lower, much lower. We're talking about 0.4, 0.5%, okay? Out of every, that would be about 4 or 5 euros approximately. So you can exchange that directly for whichever stablecoin you want or for Bitcoin. Try it out if you haven't already. He says
those fees are almost zero, practically 0%, not counting that additionally we have the loyalty program, which in wallet, the Space Center loyalty program gives you a discount of up to 100% on wallet fees, and in Bit2Me Pro, which is advanced trading, up to 50%. So basically, as soon as you start to mess around a bit with Bit2Me Pro, trading is going to be quite interesting. Along those same lines, Javi, I'm going to take the opportunity to give a bit of a spoiler. We have an expert session on trading planned. Someone is coming to talk to us about it. So I'm going to invite you all to start using advanced trading. Why? So that all those questions you leave for us, both here in the comments and in the Telegram channel, we'll gather them up for the most frequently asked questions. And together with Javi, we'll work on answering them. As you mentioned, you have a tool where you'll get lower commissions, more affordable commissions and features that you don't have in wallet. Here, wallet is designed for something quick and simple. For people who just want to make a quick transaction, there's B2M wallet, which has buy and sell orders that you can now schedule directly with the balance you have in air, as well as the advanced trading you were mentioning. So,
and look, Giovanni, since we're talking about this live, besides what you mentioned, there's also the referral program, which is new. As you know, we have a referral system where you can link new accounts to your Bit2Me account, and that will generate some fees for you. We've done this with companies, okay? We've also created a specific feedback for companies if you have yours registered. And there are comments coming in live. Giovanni Charrete says, no, I mean, with card payments because of the conversion to fiat. Or Amon who comments, but when you have them in air, you can use the SEA card for cashback. You have to take it out of air. Well, Amon, if you want or if you have any questions or you've tried to do this and it doesn't work for you, contact the team because you can have your stablecoins directly in Bit2Me Air and automatically connect you, make a payment and get cash back as if they were in your wallet. Exactly the same. You can be generating it automatically without needing to withdraw it, Giovanni.
Correct. In fact, no, not all cryptocurrencies are supported. But in this case, specifically the stablecoins, I would say they are all directly linked to card, which you can use with funds that are in air. If for some reason you can't link it, once again, it's super important to have the app updated. If for some reason you still can't do it, after making sure the app is updated, open a ticket. Hey, I can't do it, my colleague. I've tried it on another phone and from the web version and I still couldn't access it. Super important. Another super important point that we discussed the other day and mentioned in the Telegram group, when using the B2Me card, whether it's the virtual or physical version, it's important that when we go to the physical point of sale terminal, we wait a few seconds. The usual tendency is for the merchant or seller to pull the card away very quickly. Our system is very advanced. So wait a few brief seconds with the card or with your phone so that the process, that operation can be completed properly. Keep in mind, as we were saying, sometimes the funds are directly in air. So they have to be used in air, linked to the card, and that whole process needs to be completed. Make sure that the balance is there. After confirming the balance, proceed to exchange it to euros because the merchant receives euros. All of this process happens in milliseconds. So what happens then? If you swipe the card too quickly, like you would with a traditional card, it can cause timing errors. All right. So just with that, wait a few seconds. In fact, it has happened to me with some people and B2Mers I've been around where they tell the merchant, no, wait, I'll insert the card or swipe it and enter the PIN. All versions are valid, just so you keep that in mind.
All right, Giovanni is commenting and he's absolutely right. Yes, it's going. Let's move forward a bit. Let's see. Jesus Carrillo comments the topic of leaving a section for B2M. If you want, Giovanni, we can also talk a bit about the new thing we have regarding B2M redemption, the improvements to the locks, B2M holder week, and we'll keep going because it's true that otherwise we're going to run out of time.
That's right. Exactly. Now, as people had requested, we now have the option to redeem B2M available on the website. Even though most of our users mainly use the app, we always take into account all the suggestions and initiatives that are brought to us. There are also new improvements to the lock. Until now, we simply did not have the convenient option to, for example, seamlessly move from a 3-month lock to a 6-month or even a 12-month lock. Now, we can do it directly and effortlessly without incurring any kind of penalty whatsoever. All right? Furthermore, we also very recently had the highly anticipated B2M Holder Week, which was indeed quite interesting and engaging. An extensive airdrop of 5.5 million A1X tokens was successfully carried out. And now, even the vast majority of users, well, actually all of them, without exception, have already received their allocated airdrop. So we extend our sincere gratitude to you for actively participating in this event. Please keep in mind that among the essential requirements for eligibility is to have a significant amount of B2M accumulated or even securely locked. All right. This is crucial in order to fully participate in it and benefit from the distribution.
To sum it up, the new improvements to B2M are adding new funds to existing pools without affecting the lockup period. Okay, that's important. You can add funds from the flexible earn pool without going through the wallet, as you can see on the screen, which Jose has shared. Move funds between pools from flexible to 3 months, 12 months, and so on. All right, and then renew the pool starting 30 days before they unlock. So, well, if you're doing it, these are some of the points. And then there's the matter of redeeming it for points. Victor Ravelo asks, why should I have B2M? B2M, in the end, Victor, is a B2M token that allows you to access better conditions throughout the entire platform. So in all the products and services, you'll see that there's a service specifically called Space Center, which gives you, depending on the points you have, you'll have one level or another. And based on the level you have, okay? Based on the points you've earned, among other things, by having B2M, you'll be able to access better percentages when making payments, receiving cashback, staking, and so on, okay? So it's a token that gives you a series of utilities within the platform. That's basically the reason why. Yes, Jonet?
For example, Jose Gamboa was asking us, he says, it would be good if tokens in small amounts could be converted to B2M. In fact, this can already be done. It's something that can already be done. Actually, they've even posted it on Bit2Me feedback and it has been dismissed. Why? Because for amounts less than 1 cent, you can exchange them directly, your tokens for B2M, regardless of the cryptocurrency, as long as it's available either in Pro, which is advanced trading, or in wallet. So yes, you can exchange small amounts, but only those greater than 1 cent. Otherwise, you just have to wait a bit until it reaches 1 cent and then you can exchange
it. Perfect. Well, let's continue a bit with the new coins we've also added this month, in case some of you were waiting for them, both in wallet and on the front end, where you already have all the coins available. Just a reminder that there's a notification with an alert, a little dot on new coins, okay? You can filter it if you want to stay up to date on what's new in that regard, but if not, we'll tell you Launch Coin, Per, Bana, Hot, Bondex, Florida Ox, Dog, People, AIC, B2Me, Delaware Lorian, DMC, UMA, NXPC, SOF, and MEL, KMNO, Sun, GLM, Louisiana, NER. we've added a new one called Injective, okay? For those of you who have it. And then in the long section, as Giovanni mentioned earlier, we have XRP. So just a reminder that whenever we make a new addition, whenever we add a new coin in any part in any section, right? In any service we offer, we notify you with a notification. And if you go in, you can break it down by group.
That's right. Not just by grouping prices. Remember that in the prices section, we have the option of 2 tabs. We have the prices tab, the collections tab, and the news tab, where you can see market dominance, the fear and greed index. So you can get a general overview. We even have news there as well. So make the most of it. Along those same lines also, I would also mention that we still have some things pending here.
Just a reminder, because I saw someone in the chat asking when we were going to list a certain coin, if you want to send us suggestion for new coins to be listed, please use Bit2Me feedback for that, okay? And there you'll be able to see the status or stage of the request you made for that coin to also appear on Bit2Me.
That's right. Exactly. The savings plan, basically the savings plan, we've also improved it. As you mentioned, even recurring purchases, when you make a purchase, you can have it sent directly to her. Along those lines, the savings plan is basically recurring purchase. How can you set them up? You can make purchases daily, weekly, or monthly. It's something that's actually very, very useful because you don't have to worry about the stress of how the market is doing. You make an average purchase directly based on what interests you. It can be from as little as €1 a day in Bitcoin weekly or in B2M, keeping in mind that it's actually super simple. You just open the app, click on buy, and it gives you that option, and you can manage it however you want, daily, weekly, or monthly. Many of these people are actually doing it as a savings plan because they see it like a Netflix subscription or something similar. And they simply set aside an amount each month that allows them to do this without destabilizing their personal or family finances. That's super important to always keep those things in mind.
In fact, Giovanni, that's exactly what Michael Saylor does. Michael Saylor makes a purchase every Sunday. But if you look at the historical chart, what Michael Saylor actually does is split up his purchases. So he has an average entry price of about $70,000, right? Now we're at 108,000. Well, Giovanni, that's exactly what he just told you. Using a savings plan means not being overexposed to a specific price, especially if you're buying tokens or cryptocurrencies with high volatility, which do exist. As you know, there are cryptocurrencies with a lot of volatility. It's about reducing that gap, averaging out to a better price across all the purchases you can make.
Also, the filters have been improved specifically in B2Me card. Now you can see the status of our card payments, exactly how they are being held. Sometimes the status might be held, cancelled, and so on. This has been improved once again thanks to your feedback and user experience. So thank you for that. And that has also been part of one of the proposals in B2Me feedback.
Well, yes, exactly. Sorry, Jose, because I got sidetracked and went to the coin listing that we mentioned earlier. Giovanni mentioned the savings plan and also improvements to the card filters, which in fact, some users have given us feedback about, such as some payments appearing duplicated, showing up only once, or not displaying correctly. That is also currently being worked on and is being diligently taken care of. And if you would like, we can also go over the various events we have participated in.
And no less important, it's also worth remembering that we need to clearly distinguish between B2Me or the B2Me group and B2M. Sometimes I often see, both in writing and in comments on YouTube or on social media, even on Telegram, that people don't distinguish between B2M, the B2M utility token, and B2Me, the B2Me company or group of companies, as it could be. That's what we have. Among the group of B2Me companies, Deca Labs, B2Me, XRP, and a few others out there.
Correct. So you have to understand that the B2Me group, B2Me, Deca Labs, STX, okay? They are different pieces of the B2Me group, where the token in the end is a technological development. It's a utility token that uses cryptocurrency technology to program a series of utilities within the B2Me ecosystem so that you can have advantages. And that token is traded. That token has a specific number of units that people are constantly buying and selling, so it has a market price. So it's important that we distinguish between the B2Me group as a company, as a corporation, and then the B2M token as a tool, a product that interacts within the services and products that the platform offers.
Javi, we have another question here from Pablo. He says, the airdrops, or is it the token that wants to enter B2Me? It offers to do the drop. I don't know if I explained myself. Did you understand the question?
Yes, I mean, Sometimes, of course, at B2Me, we announce that there will be an airdrop, that there will be a distribution of tokens from a cryptocurrency, for example. No. Normally, this is decided by the token issuer. I mean, we don't tell them they have to do this or that. The tokens that are listed on B2Me have a roadmap. They have a launch and positioning strategy, and they decide with us, for example, but also if they get listed on other platforms, they say, hey, so with B2Me, we do this distribution, right? All users who buy the token will receive a certain number, but we don't tell them what they have to do.
It's part of strategies, sometimes done jointly with the project, other times directly by the project itself, which says, let's promote it. Along those same lines, we also have questions from SVB27. It says, do you need to have a minimum amount on the platform to request the B2M card? No, it's not necessary. It depends on the Space Center loyalty program. You may have to pay either 20 euros or 0 euros for the issuance of the physical card, depending on your Space Center level in the loyalty program. Also, the B2Me card virtual it is completely free, and you can issue it at any time. You just need to follow a few very simple steps, and you can link it to your Apple Wallet or your Google Wallet. Along those same lines, you can even pay directly on online platforms, or as I mentioned, pay directly through those systems at physical stores.
And well, just to say that during this month of June, we've also been very active participating in events and on technology platforms, right? Also, in terms of communication, with a lot of exposure, at the beginning of the month, we took part in the GNI event, which is a conference related to or focused on the world of corporations, investment, and everything to do with generative artificial intelligence. We were also at that event because there are some very interesting synergies or connections in that area. Then we also participated.
In that talk, our colleague Enrique Palacios was actually the speaker, and the panel was titled "The Tokenization of Financial Assets Finally Arrives, the New Businesses That Are Coming." It was quite interesting, and we'll keep organizing these kind of events, so stay tuned in case you have the opportunity to take part in them.
Indeed, we were also at the Madrid Economic Forum, which took place on the weekend of the 7th and 8th. There were people like Juan Ramón Rayo, Miguel Ángel Bastos, Daniel Lacalle. Also, well, there was quite a strong political component there, right? You know, it was organized by Wall Street Wolverine, that's Victor Domínguez, who lives in Andorra and is a YouTuber with a very famous podcast, right? Where he brings some politicians and people who are currently in the news with a somewhat critical approach towards governments and so on, in this case, towards the Spanish government. We participated.
It sparked an interesting debate, and you took part in it. In fact, your presentation was very well received. Actually, it was titled "The New Paradigm of Bitcoin." So honestly, it went really well. The feedback from the people who were there and those who were able to watch it later was very positive. So it was quite interesting because it sparked that necessary debate that sometimes makes you reconsider strategies and stay a bit more informed.
Of course, the idea is that, well, to share that message about Bitcoin also from a philosophical and historical perspective and with a political touch as well, because I believe Bitcoin stands for many ideas of freedom, right? And well, it was a pleasure to take part. We also attended Proof of Talk where Abel Peña was present. It took place in Paris on the 10th of June and 11th, if I'm not mistaken, at the Louvre Museum. So it was also a very interesting setting. They talked about Web3, artificial intelligence, and Bit2Me's positioning throughout Europe, right? And how we are trying to expand our reach, not only in Spain and Argentina. As you know, we have the team there with Pablo Casadillo. We were also at the BitConf in Argentina last year, and the idea is to keep growing. One of our main missions, of course, is to grow in Europe, right? And to build a larger community of Bit2Me users across the entire continent. So, well, we're going to keep doing this now in July and August. I think things are a bit quieter, although we will also be taking part in some events. Of course, the event that took place at NWC 10 Lab, where Giovanni was there, Elvi was there, as could not be otherwise. Gunter was there, Javi was there, and many other people joined us in Guaira and at the Telefonica building on Gran Via, where we also had the chance to talk with Jorge Ordovás and other entrepreneurs from the Web3 and tokenization sector. And well, we'll keep on trying to evangelize and reach as many places as possible so that more and more people can understand this, right? I want to say to those of you who are here live in this kind of program, who are interested, who are involved, who are already going beyond just the investment side, who know that this is a very important movement, technological, philosophical, political piece changing the world. I think you are privileged, just like all of us, to be here at this moment in July 2025, experiencing adoption before the usual crowd arrives, right? The TradFi world, the banks, the financial sector, Wall Street, and so on. So,
Javi, just to remind everyone once again that in fact the spoiler has already been revealed. As was mentioned before, on the 21st of July, you can mark that date. We'll be doing a trading tutorial. It will be in the expert session section, and someone will come to talk to us about it. As I said, start tinkering using Bit2Me's advanced trading, and all those questions, frequently asked questions, we'll be collecting them so we can explain things as we go, and we'll also answer some of them live right there on the spot. Then, Javi, we have Carlos here again, and I think we should clarify this. But there's a big difference between the value of Bit2Me as a company and the B2M token. That needs to be improved. Bit2Me as a company, great. The token is not listed in constancy. How? In line with the market. Once again, we need to differentiate. There's Bit2Me, the Bit2Me group, and then B2M, the utility token. So how are we going to make the most of the B2M ecosystem? First, with all the real utilities that the token currently has throughout the Bit2Me suite, which includes, as always, air, car, and others, and even referrals. That said, now in one way or another, and indirectly, all the strategic and commercial agreements made with Bit2Me and the Bit2Me group will also go hand in hand with things for the B2M ecosystem, because every service, every product created at Bit2Me will always end up using B2M for it as a utility for discounts, for exclusive discounts and opportunities. All right. So they go hand in hand.
Well, listen, let's wrap up, if that's all right with you, with the promotion. We also have this summer for Bit2Me Travel, which will allow you to be much more efficient thanks to the agreements and collaborations we've achieved at Bit2Me with some of the promoters or with some of the logistics companies that help you travel to a hotel, find accommodation, eat at some restaurant chain, etc. We encourage you to take a look. I don't know if Giovanni, do you have it?
Yes, Javi, look, it has two things. First, aside from the undeniable fact that the exclusive discounts we currently have available in the application are already significantly much better and more advantageous than on traditional platforms, when you proceed to pay with your dedicated Bit2Me card, you will automatically receive a direct and substantial 4% discount on that entire booking transaction. Now, this significant benefit can be seamlessly combined with an additional discount of up to 7%, depending on your specific level within the Esteem Space Center program. Space Center, to reiterate, is Bit2Me's exclusive and comprehensive loyalty program. So you have the 4% and then an additional up to 7% with the card. Both of these valuable benefits, both of these can be effectively used together. So take a really good look this upcoming summer season. It's absolutely perfect for truly taking full advantage of those significant discounts, on various accommodations, both in luxurious 4-star and opulent 5-star hotels. Honestly, it's worth checking out. Many of the users who have tried it are really happy with it. And we'd also love to get feedback from you about where you used it, where you went, so that in some way the community can also say, I was there, or I want to go there. I didn't know that place existed. And enjoying it with Bit2Me Travel, which is through Bit2Me Life, found under the Bit2Me Life tab. In the tab, from the mobile app, on the left-hand sidebar, you'll find all the products. Among them is Bit2Me Life. There you'll find Bit2Me Travel, accommodations, and the rest of the businesses we also have available. Remember, up to 4% cashback just for paying with your card. And it's also stackable with the loyalty program discount of up to 7%, depending on your Space Center level.
Well, perfectly explained, Giovanni. I think that's a fantastic way to wrap up. Try Bit2Me Travel this summer and let us know your feedback. I'm not sure if we'll have a show in August. Maybe we'll find a slot to do an update, but
for now, we'll see you on the 21st.
The 21st, well, it's truly been a pleasure. Thank you so much, Giovanni. Thanks to everyone joining us live. As always, we ask you to hit the thumbs up, share, and if you have any questions or need any help, you know where to find us. So thank you very much, Bit2Mers. Thank you, Giovanni, Jose, and I'm actually heading to another webinar now.
Anyway, please feel free to leave your questions in the comments section here or on our Telegram channel so that we can thoroughly answer them in our very next live session. So thank you all so much. And Javi, see you around as well.
A big hug, Bit2Mers. Bye-bye.